I'm Andrew, I'm the bike mechanic here at Torpedo7 in Hamilton, and this is my colleague
Callum, also bike mechanic here in Torpedo7 Hamilton.
So cool. So today we're going to go through suspension setup, what you need to do, setting up your bike with Torpedo7. Setting up your sag, which sag, air pressure, rebound, and how to look after your suspensions being the main things. Sag is how much movement you have in your fork or in your rear shock. So with that, it's going to be based on your rider's weight and where they're going to be riding. Someone that's doing a little bit more cross-country riding is going to run it a bit higher than someone that's going out to the redwoods and doing a bit more downhill on the weekend. A safe way to start, just to be safe, on the back of your fork, where this hand here is going to give you a rough guide based on your rider weight. If that's not there, the safe bet to go is based on what your rider weight is. So if you're 60 kgs, you're going to add a little bit on. Cool?
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
No, sounds good.
Cool. So for that, you're going to use a shock pump, which is a key thing for setting up your suspension. So for you guys that can't see here, it's a little bit different to a standard tyre pressure. It goes a little bit higher. It allows you to pump up your fork and it allows you to pump up your rear shock. So with that, today we're going to set it up for myself.
You being 85 kilos, we're going to start his body weight in PSI. So around 85, and then you can generally plus 5, maybe 10, depending on how aggressive the person rides. So where are we now? We are at 80, right.
So with this, as you can see, he's just looking at the pressure pump, seeing the number on it. With that, it was currently set at 80. We're just going to add about 5 to 8 PSI to make sure it runs nice and smooth. That's just going to allow when I'm out on the trails to have a much smoother, more enjoyable ride.
For air pressure in the rear, at a rider weight of about 85, what we're going to do is we're going to double their weight and then add about 20 onto that. So 85, you're going to be looking at 160, 90, about 205-ish? Yeah.
Yep. So again, this is what we're setting it as, is a base level. Your best bet to do it is, if you're unsure, is to pop into your local Torpedo7, talk to the mechanic that is there, and they'll be able to set it up specific to you and your riding style. Like we say, this is a baseline, so you can adjust it up or down based on that. In setting the sag, it's a little bit hard. I'm going to bring the whole bike up just so you can see. There's a little red ring on the rear suspension. That's what measures it. You'll see that moves up and down based on the rider weight. So, coming back, so it's in camera. I'm going to hop on the bike. Callum's supporting me. From there, I'm going to get my leg out. We're lifting that up to see where and how much the rear shock is travelling down. So from there, without jumping and bouncing around, I've now hopped off, and you can see, again, I'll bring it up so you can see. That red ring is set somewhere. So, it's a little bit past 30%, which we'll touch on that now, before we move any further. So, in the front, you want that sag to be sitting at about 20%. In the rear, we're looking for about, as a rule of thumb, about that 30%. So with it being a little bit past 30, we need to adjust that. So with that, we're going to add a little bit more air pressure and then redo what we just did. So again, I'm going to move that to the top. I'm going to sit back on nice and smoothly. I'm trying not to bounce too much. I've got my feet on here. Callum's just lifting it back up to the top of the rear shock. From there, I'm going to hop off smoothly again. And we're going to see where it is. So for you guys back at home, it's now a whole lot closer. That's sitting bang smack on the 30% mark. That's what we want. So for me, that's a great starting point. It's going to allow me to get out on the trails and have a real good experience on the bike.
Alright, so for rebound, this is going to be how fast your fork or shock extends again. So a rough guide just to get it set up. Once you've set your air pressures front and rear, what you're going to want to do for your fork is you just want to compress your fork and just see if that front wheel skips off the ground. What that's going to make sure that happens is that you are going to have traction with the ground, and that's going to make sure you're not skipping over roots, you're not wallowing in the suspension. It's going to feel lively, it's going to feel playful, or how you set it. For the shock, a good way to do it is you can be seated on the bike. While sitting, you can roll off a curb, and what you're going to want to happen is the shock is going to compress, it'll rebound, and then it'll settle just a little bit, and that's an ideal sort of baseline. From there you can sort of fine tune it. That's basically just going to be going down some runs, seeing what feels better, add a click, remove a click of rebound, higher or lower, and seeing what feels best for you. Yeah.
So with that, just for those that haven't played with Rebound before, you have a little lever on the rear shock here, which the dial will spin around so you can adjust higher or lower. And on most forks, you're going to get down, and under here you can twist it again. You've got one on the front, one on the rear. Your suspensions work differently. We're going through how to do your baselines. If you want to get a little bit more in detail, pop into one of your local Torpedo7 stores. All of the mechanics and some of the shop staff will be happy to help you set it up purely so you get a great experience out on the trails. We're just going to talk quickly and briefly about how to look after your suspension and some local bike tools and stands just to help out. Cool. So a big, quick, easy way to start with is clean your bike. Your whole bike loves a little bit of love, so clean the frame as well. But you want to clean in and around here. This is what's going to be going in and out of the fork. If it's dirty, you're going to be tracking a little bit of dirt and a little bit of dust in there. So if this is clean, it's going to be smooth. Same idea, keep everything away, keep the dust off it, keep the grit off it. All of that sort of stuff makes a big difference to how long, one, your suspension is going to last, and two, the experience and how smooth your bike's going to roll. So from there, anything else, you can get some different kind of sprays that will help. Again, I would talk to your local mechanic at Torpedo7 just to make sure that they're setting you up with the right product for your particular bike.
Just keeping those seals clean as well. That's just going to reduce the ingress of dirt, grit, water. It'll keep it smoother for longer. That's really what you want with your suspension.
Yeah. So adding on to that, with the seals, that is something that we can do in store. I don't recommend doing it at home. Bring it in, we can book it in. With that, we'll pull your fork or your rear shock apart, we'll put some fresh parts in. All it does, it gets rid of the gritty stuff that's there to catch the dust and the grit, and moving forward it will just make it a whole lot more plush and a lot smoother.
And another handy tool for setting up your suspension, either just a ruler or a pair of verniers. Some suspension manufacturers print the sag on their shocks, some do not. That's where this comes in handy. You can find out on the manufacturer's website the length of your suspension's travel, and then from there find how much sag is sitting at that O-ring, and then work out sort of a percentage using your tools. Yeah.
If you're an avid user and get out there all the time, you probably want to do it more often than Joe Blogs that just rides once or twice a year. Like I said earlier, it is on average about 50 hours of riding is what all the manufacturers say. That again is a guideline from them, so jump in, talk to your local mechanics, book it in for the Torpedo7 free safety check. From that they can tell you whether it needs it or not. So the dropper post, it's nice and easy. You have a lever here, we've got our dropper post to the bottom, but you push a button and it comes up and it goes down. You have a cable with this one, you've got cable tension. The more tension that's on it, it allows it to release or come up. Once we take out all the pressure off, it stops it from going up or down. So with that, same thing, it has a stanchion on it. So you want to keep that nice and clean as you do with your fork and your rear shock.
Cool. Going from that, it's going to have a pressurized cartridge in it. That's what allows it to extend and be there when you need it and go down and not be too stiff.
I do it every week or every ride I go on. It's better to be safe than sorry. I know that I'm gonna have a better experience if I've got the right pressure.
Sometimes what you can do is you can turn a zip tie around backwards so it won't actually lock in, and it'll add just enough tension so that you can actually measure your sag.
If they're too high or they're too low, your experience on the ride is going to be good, bad or indifferent. So by checking them and making sure it's set up specifically to your rider weight is going to make your overall experience a whole lot nicer and smoother. That is normal. If it's excessive amounts and it's rolling off, then you should probably be bringing it in and talking to one of your local mechanics. With that, you want a little bit because it keeps it lubricated. You don't want too much because there could be something bigger going on. If we haven't answered all your questions, jump in, talk to your local mechanic. They'll be happy to help you. And then free Torpedo7 safety checks. It's something we offer whether you're riding a bike from us or not, but we'd love to see you bring it in and we can help you get it dialed. And other than that, we'll see you out there.
Yeah.
Thanks for Callum for joining me tonight.
No worries.
Have a good one, team.
See you out there.